Focus. Do it. You're too close to me. That's probably what it is. There we go. We're trying to get this picture that I've been wanting for a while. It's over here off of one of the highways, so the wind's blowing it just a little bit too much, unfortunately, but I took some test shots. Hopefully at this point next time I'll be able just to like roll up, take the photo, and roll out.
Action. Since we're on the topic of a new year, of me, getting another year older, I figured it'd be a good idea to, while doing all these changes and wanting to continue progressing and so forth, that to talk about troubleshooting would be another place to start. Throughout the prior times of my beginning stages of wanting to create content, I feel like I got caught up with me being a little bit younger and being able to be taken serious, as well as just what am I even trying to create or tell, or is there even a position that I hold within the creative space. So once I kind of ran into some speed bumps, I feel like I just stopped the car right at the speed bump and got out and just started walking home. Didn't even turn the car off. Just stopped and started hiking my way back instead of just going over the speed bump. And instead of that happening this time, I've decided to have a more of a fearful side of, if I don't do this or give it my all this time, I think it's going to be the last time I try it. And I think it's funny that as I was going through getting this last video uploaded, that I put myself in a time constraint. And within that time constraint, I had kind of dragged a little bit, procrastinating doing the talking head because I was kind of nervous of that. I didn't know what I was going to be able to talk in front of the camera or even get the mic or audio figured out. But my biggest issue turned out being all the drone footage. The drone footage just completely tanked. As I was trying to export, it just kept getting corrupted. And not even corrupted, it kept getting artifacts, I guess you would say, where it's like the drone footage was filmed in a quarter of a frame per second. Like it would play like it was buffering, and then it would catch a frame, and then it would buffer again, and then it would catch a frame. But it was all in real time. So naturally, I stayed up late. I was trying to figure this out, and I was trying to get it done so I could post it on my actual birthday. But the issue was that I had to go to bed. At that point, I stayed up too late already. I was already SOL for sleep, but I have to get a little bit in. That morning, I was in the gym, and I'm like, well, I could just cut the footage. I could just cut all the drone footage out, just get the video up. I don't even need the drone footage. And I could see it. I could see the timeline, and I can see the way that the video would play. And I wasn't happy with it. I could already tell you that I wasn't going to be happy with it. And it might not have mattered, depending on how many people seen it. But to me it did. To me it did, because it's another one of those speed bumps. Am I going to just park the car and get out and start walking back where I came from? or am I actually going to continue to persist on this? And once I decided that, I like started diving in and figuring out possible ways to fix this. I instantly went to Google and typed in like buffering export drone footage, and of course DJI's website came up with all of their troubleshooting in their forum, and Reddit and Adobe, and everybody had an opinion. But I kept coming back to this one post, and I was talking about how the frame rate, or even the variable frame rate of the way the DJI allows you to have that to make sure that it does get steady footage, could be having that issue. So I was thinking that I had just completely ruined all the footage, and I was either going to have to restart, cut the footage, or just not do it. So I had taken like 2 or 3 days. I think it was like 2 or 3 days. And I was like actively thinking about this, and I took all the information that I had, like that I knew of. I took everything I knew about frame rates, everything I knew about importing and exporting footage. I even took into consideration like maybe it's a sequence of the file. And that's where I kind of got a little freaked out. I was thinking like, well, if this sequence is jacked, am I going to have to again start all over again? And that's kind of where I got a little nervous, because I had already torn all the DJI footage up and then gone back and re-edited everything in still the 120 frames per second instead of the I think I brought them down to like 24 frames per second. So naturally everything was off. Now the timing was off because I had these longer like videos, or these longer clips that I had to fit into like the same spots because I didn't want to rework everything. And that's what I focused on. I focused on just making sure that I can get this drone footage squared away so I can just post it and just move on to the next one. And oddly enough, it was so satisfying to like sit there and like deeply think of everything that I knew and what could possibly this be. And it turns out I like just came to the conclusion. I'm like, I'm going to export, and instead of exporting the whole timeline, I'm going to do a test like export, because naturally I have my like intro sequence that is just drone footage and a little bit of my talking head at the beginning. So I could see my talking head footage, and then I could see if the drone footage is buffering. So I started with that and I exported. Sure enough, same thing, the choppy footage. And then I'm like, well, I wonder if there's a way to export in different frame rates. And I figured like once you set your sequence, that's what you're going to export in. Well, then I discovered that I have a 24 frame per second sequence, and I'm trying to export at, it's like 60 frames. And I'm like, well, maybe that's what's happening, because effectively it's having to try and create all these frames within that point. Or is it even trying to make those frames? Is it just saying like, here we go, this is what you got? So it turns out that you can just export however you'd like. I did a bunch of those tests, those like short, like 12-second tests in different frame rates. And I was able to get the frame rate stutter to drop down to the point where it was just like, it was still slow, but it was a more of a consistent speed that was happening. I went back to these forums and I'm like, I'm still having this issue. And one was saying that you need to use media encoder. Obviously, that sent me down another rabbit hole. I figured you just click export on Premiere and it does it for you. Like, that's the whole point of it, is it not? Well, sure enough, you can just send it to media encoder. And I did that. And I did it at the 24 frames per second. And I did it at 4K. And not only did it export faster, but it also exported it perfect. Drone footage was right on the money. And it was just another one of those, like, I nailed it. Like, there it was. And I realized that it's not showing up every day, or you got to grind and hustle for it. It's what are you willing to do to make sure that you're still learning, that you're still progressing, and that you still actually want to be doing this. Once I kind of figured that out, I like was looking back on that whole process. And I'm like, wow, that is like almost the funnest part for me. Like through it all, that was by far the funnest aspect of that video. And it wasn't even it was even on camera. So I figured what I would do is I would go and do a photo shoot on Friday, I believe, Friday morning, because it was supposed to be super cold. And there's this photo that I drive past every day, but I have yet to take it because I'm either on my way to work or I just can't bring myself to pull over on the side of the road. And I like get up early. I'm like kind of mulling around. I figured, it's not going to get any colder in 30 minutes, so I can just kind of take my time. I set up one of the bags that I never thought I would use just because it's one of the like messenger style bags, and it really only has enough space to set up for a single camera, a few lenses, and there you go. But the neat part is I actually reconfigured it to hold the A7S III ready to roll with a lens cap on it, and then on the like left side of it, I have the M50 in its little pouch that I can just zip open and grab. But the cool part that I found out later is that when I opened up that like Velcro flap on it, when I opened it up, the hook side of the hook and loop stuck. So that was a pretty neat like little hack, I guess you can say, that just organically came out of the woodwork. So I get out there, and I've been like scouting this location for a minute. Like I said, I drive past it every day. I get out there, I pull off on the shoulder, and the scene is just dead. Like every aspect that I want in this photo is just not there. And I thought maybe in single digits it would be there. It must be something with the manufacturing process that they do there or something. But it's not. It was not it. And that's fine. So I'm like, whatever, like this is perfect. This is right on topic for me of your photo is not going to be taken today. And that's cool. What are we going to do next? Like keep troubleshooting this. Troubleshoot. Is it the wind? Is it the temperature? Is it the day of the week? Like what is it? So now I have to start making sure that I'm making notes in my pocketbook regarding the site just on this single location for one photo. I think I took like 4 photos. I took it at certain ISOs. So that way I know, one, the dual ISO, which is going to look better. Am I better off just running a lower ISO instead of being in that second sweet spot? Or am I better off being in that second sweet spot so I can, get into post a little bit better and edit it the way that I want it to be edited? So, troubleshooted. Boom. Now, when I'm ready to get out there and I know what day this is going to happen and I'm squared away, I hop out there, camera's already set. I snap the photo, I walk away. Also didn't realize that I can go around this site onto the other side, face the other way, and possibly get a sunrise shot through it. So, even better, But then I get home, I'm like, cool, let's offload all this. Let's get it off the camera so we can have more space. My entire PC's hard drives, like between the SSD and the hard drive, full. No space. It will not offload the SIM card from the Sony onto the new file for this project. So then it's like, all right, well, now what? Like, do I need to delete stuff? And I've deleted photos before. I've deleted content before. I'm not doing that this time. I'm just not. Because this content and everything that I've done up into this is more important now. Because it is like that like buildup of lore, that buildup of like the backstory. I came across a pretty neat little deal from Best Buy, and it buffed out, and it's fast, it works well, and I haven't even filled up. Well, that's not correct. I have filled up a quarter of that storage, but that's everything. So now, all my PC has on it is this video that I'm working on now. There's this aphorism that I heard recently, and I feel like it's a dad joke in disguise. The way it goes is, do you know what's behind a mountain? More mountains. Huh. It's like, obviously there's more mountains, but I think every time I've come across one of these one of these issues or problems that I needed to troubleshoot, another one would appear, another reasoning to like keep having this just like feeding need to get past it and like understand it more in depth, and it's become really enjoyable. I've actually found more enjoyment out of the problem solving aspect and figuring out what's going on with things instead of sitting in front of a camera. And, naturally it's uncomfortable. So I think it's almost like a break between having to sit in front of a camera and making sure I'm getting footage is having this need to just understand more. And like I said in the previous video, there's been a big change in the content that I'm consuming. And I've started consuming more content of how to be just a better reader. I'm so excited to read so many books, but I still have to get through the first book. I have to climb that first mountain before I can get to that top and see what else is like higher than this peak or this summit, or how many other summits are out there for me to actually conquer. And I think the benefit of having that precise understanding of being able to like pinpoint, I'm like, all right, you got to read this book first, and then we can move on to the next one. Because I've never had that issue. I've never had that issue of, I can't wait to finish this so I can move on to the next book. Or I have, like, just around me, I have 2 or 3 books that I am so excited to like get into and start reading, but I have to finish this one first. Or even just the fact that I've almost filled up one side of my pocketbook, and now I'm like, I want to make a video about the pocketbooks. I want to do that, and I maybe I want to try this different, and I'm going to start thinking about different pocketbook brands and like the build quality of them and so forth, and that's super fun and cool. But I first need to finish this video, and it's not just troubleshooting to figure out what's wrong, but it's troubleshooting to continue to move forward. I'm just so fearful of saying stagnant anymore. Like turning 26 was like a big eye opener, to the point where I got like 4 or 5 videos out after these first 2 that just pertain to like epiphanies that have come across my mind of being 26. My wife says that we're 30. We're not. But it feels like that already. It feels like this time is moving so fast that I can't even catch up or keep up, let alone think about progressing past where I'm at. But it's exciting to feel that way, that I can progress. I can continue doing this. Or even in the expectation of no one's going to like what I want to put out as far as videos, and no one's going to be interested, and no one's going to watch it, and that's fine. But I'm going to do it because I'm still enjoying it. And I think that's huge, especially as we get into a day and age that is so overwhelming with everything else that's going on, whether if it's work, whether if it's the cost of living, or just the content that we're consuming. I even think I'm going to move from just having, Instagram and YouTube Shorts, or even just YouTube, the first thing that I pick up, to learning how to play like solitaire, or even like just having that book next to me. Because instead of trying to read like one chapter a day, I'm just going to read every time I want to be on Instagram or on YouTube Shorts. Because if I'm not actively on YouTube watching long form videos, I don't want it. I've even watched a video about keeping our minds in a long-term aspect. It's actually about, why college students aren't able to actually read books anymore, which is a super interesting comment. I'll pin it below, but it like really broadened my understanding of maybe it is what we're consuming that's doing this, and not just myself or the history of my like education career or whatever it is. It is what I've brought into my mind and what I considered as normal, instead of just trying to continue to progress, which, as I've said before, that's the troubleshooting side of this, is I'm seeing these things that I'm noticing, and I'm coming from this issue or this problem that I can reverse engineer, because that's what it felt like when I was trying to figure out this drone footage. It was like I was reverse engineering an iPhone so I can build it myself, because we're not the first person that's done this. We're not the first people that are discovering how to edit video or how to reteach themselves how to read, or even just the first person to go out and take a photo that I'm sure is all across the internet. But to me, it's important, and to me, it's different because it's the location that I've seen that I had that aspect to think about. And I think we can all troubleshoot that way. I think we can troubleshoot our minds. We can troubleshoot the hardware and software we're trying to use. I feel like we can troubleshoot the reason why I personally didn't go to the gym on Tuesday or Wednesday, but I went Thursday and Friday, and I worked my whole body still. Instead of just being like, oh, well, I guess this week's a wash, I'm just not going to go. No, I thought about it. I'm like, no, you didn't go because of X, Y, and Z. And we need to throw X and Y out the window, and Z is going to be what's going to push you to keep going to this. And even if it was like a moment of like a spiraling effect internally of not wearing what I normally wear to work that makes me feel good and presents myself in a certain way, I felt like I let somebody win. And I don't think that's fair to myself or even the people that I'm representing, or even just the fact of I'm getting so far in my career because of who I am that just one person is trying to change that or get at me, that now they're winning because I didn't show up with my sleeves rolled up halfway up my arm and ready to rock and roll with this attitude of look out, I'm going to take this. If you are going to troubleshoot, I think you really do have to look at it in a way that's not so immediately within your own emotional setting. You have to look at it from all aspects of why is my export not working, but my playback is working just fine. Which, if you know Adobe, with Premiere, your playback most of the time is going to be dog water, and your export is going to be just fine. Or I changed everything. The drone, the M50, the A7S III, even the iPhone, to shoot in 4K at 24 frames a second. Unless I actively make the decision to shoot in 120 again, or whatever it is, I have to make that change, because now I can pick up everything, throw it into a sequence, and I'm fine. Granted, the file sizes are monstrous, but it is what it is. And when something comes up to that, like say the hard drive in my hardware, hits the bed, that's cool. We'll problem solve and troubleshoot that when that comes. But for now, I really want to leave this video with an actual conclusion. What are you doing now that you could just troubleshoot and spend an hour or a day or a week or a month or a year, not just parking the car, leaving it running with the door open in front of a speed bump, and walking home?